Many believers struggle when their faith is tested. Those questions start coming in. Sometimes and sometimes you begin to question. We know it's not right, but then there are points what guidance does your book give to hold on during these difficult times?
Rediscovering your purpose of existence is a spiritual tour guide. It is not just an ordinary book. Allow me to say that. In this book, I'm telling readers that the journey towards discovering one's purpose is not always easy. Setbacks and disappointments are inevitable. Like you have rightfully said, sometimes you might have some financial challenges and the likes. So you need to cultivate resilience. And this resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks, to learn from mistakes, and to keep moving forward despite challenges. So there is need to embrace a culture of fostering faith and reinforcing resilience in order for you to rediscover your purpose of existence.
And I like one thing about your recent book and the previous one. There is a connection. The last time I still remember we were talking about the hardships that you went through that were actually in the book, the previous one.
Yes.
And now you're talking about how to hold on, especially during difficult times. How has your own faith journey sharpened the themes you explore in this recent book?
Yeah, thank you. In chapter 4, which is called Living a Purpose-Driven Life, I've narrated my life experiences starting from the high school that I went through. It was not a high school, it was a secondary school, if I were to say. A rural school, a setup where you would say, while studying in the class, you would see some cattle running around and whatever. I've never had the chance to go to a boarding school or any extraordinary school of some sort. So it happened that sometime in 2000, when we were about to write our ordinary level, national examinations, our teachers were brutally beaten up. They were being accused of being political activists of some sort. So this happened in June, and we were about to write our exams in November. So it happened that we wrote our exams without 3 teachers. Maths, English, and science teachers were no longer with us. So we continued journeying on without our teachers. So we had the faith that we were going to pass. And I tell you, we wrote our exams, and I passed with first and second grades. When we passed all the exams.
Wow, that's great.
So for me, it was a way of saying my faith was being tested by then, and I conquered despite the setbacks that were happening in my lives. And also you'd find that even when I was a pastor, I also encountered some challenges in ministry, like we have rightfully said. At one time, I remember when I was serving at a certain circuit, in a rural circuit, we would indulge in some project that would give us some income generating funds. But when you have read your brailers, you'd anticipate that maybe your congregants will come and buy them. Nonetheless, they would even shun and go to buy some shops away. But that did not deter me from pursuing my goal. I had to take those brailers and go to Chiazwa and sell them there to some wages there. So I had the faith and the resilience to continue moving on despite the setbacks that I was encountering in my life.
So this, in my view, this is strong faith that you have. And do you believe faith is something that one builds gradually, or can it be awakened in a moment of revelation?
Faith is not something that cannot happen as an event. Building faith is a process and not something that can just happen in a one-day thing. Although one can perceive a divine awakening just like Moses, when God revealed himself to him in the form of a burning bush. But God had to strengthen Moses' faith in forms of some various miracles, whereby he would throw away his stick and it would turn into a snake or some sort. So the process of self-discovering and building faith is a lifelong process. As it is not a destination to be reached, but a journey to be embraced. There will be some times of uncertainty, moments of doubt, and challenges that can test our faith and resilience. But above all, we need to understand that we grow in faith. We don't just say, I have received a divine spark. Even if you get a divine spark, there are times in life when you need to say, I need to go a step further. Take, for example, even Abraham. Despite the fact that God promised him that you are going to be a father of many nations, at one time God did take him outside and say, count the stars. If you are able to count them, then that's the number of your descendants. So it's a process, it's not an event.
And in your recent remarks, you've just talked about, hope going, should I say faith going hand in hand with resilience.
Yes.
Let's talk about resilience. You write about overcoming setbacks. What role does resilience play in rediscovering one's purpose?
In this book, I have come up with a working definition of resilience. In this case, resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity and maintain positive outlook. So to rediscover your purpose of existence, you need to cultivate resilience by developing a healthy coping mechanism, by practicing self-care, by fostering strong support networks. And these resources, they bolster you through challenges and some periods that you go through to navigate yourself during inevitable difficulties that you might encounter in your lives. So you need to embrace challenges. You need to learn from the setbacks and trust in the unfolding process. By so doing, you'll be having the ability to withstand any force and setback that would come along your way.
I know you've talked about, you've given us an example of, your project in Brila, rearing. But can you share another one maybe, a personal moment when resilience became central to your ministry or your personal life?
Sure. At one time when I was serving at when I was assigned to a certain task as a pastor, I encountered a challenge that even today I would say, if God helped me overcome this challenge, is there any challenge that I would ever fail to overcome? When I was working as a station chair in one of the institutions of our churches, the moment when I arrived at the place, the community was up in arms, saying the church must move away from this place. We need to take over the school. And then I was saying, oh God, yes, it might have been written that this school was going to be taken over by the community, but let it not happen during my lifetime. So at one time I had to pray. Kana uchinamata wakavhura maziso zvichiri zvakakunakira. On this day in question, it was around 12 p.m. I opened my eyes and sat on the sofa and said, God, I want to talk to you. And I had to confront God and say, God, I'm not happy about what is going on. I'm not sad with you, but I'm not happy about this. So I prayed and said, God, I'm surrendering this battle unto your hands. And guess what? God turned the tables. Those who were talking bad about us, they started admiring us. Vanhu vaitityira kuti pamwe chikoro chichatorwa vakatanga kutitya because of this God. So for me, I could testify that my faith has been tested. I could testify that God have shown me that resilience is practical if you put your faith in God.
And what lessons from Scripture do you highlight in the book that encourage resilience, especially in times of loss or failure and maybe challenges, just like you rightfully putting it across now?
Yeah, in this book, there are some scripture references. Like I have cited the story of Job. Job is a book that has been written for the Israelites. They used to think that God is the God of blessings, the God who always brings the good out of for his children. So when Job was struck by light, when Job's sons were struck by lightning, when Job was struck by swords and everything being destroyed by the devil, it tested Job's faith, and it gave him the resilience to continue moving on. At the end of the day, so many people, they focus on the loss that Job encountered. They forget the sweet part where God redoubled everything in his life. So Job is another scripture that I've cited, and also the issue of the story of Moses and the Exodus, whereby they were coming from slavery and they thought maybe they were going out into a good land of Canaan, and then Pharaoh and his army are coming back behind them, and they would turn to God, and God would show them the way where there seems to be no way. The last example is of Jesus Christ on the cross. That even though he was God himself, even though he was 100% God and 100% man, at one time in the Golgotha, the Gethsemane experience that he went through, he would say, Father, if thy will be done, let this cup pass over, not my will, but thy will. So you'd find that even Christ himself, he had encountered such challenges, but he continued, and his resilience kept him moving on until the final match was won.
And allow me to focus on the title of this book. You say rediscover your purpose of existence, and this is very powerful. What do you hope readers will take away, especially on this title?
Thank you. Allow me also to start by defining my working definition of the term faith. In this book, I wrote that the definition of purpose. Purpose is a dynamic and evolving sense of meaning and direction in life. Dynamic and evolving sense of meaning and direction in life. Life, you'd find that life is a journey that we live, and that journey we live it forward and not going backwards. But you'd find that we understand life in retrospective as we connect the dots and make meaning out of that life that we live in. Our life, our journey towards purpose is not a linear progression. There are some setbacks, there are some moments of doubts and unexpected challenges along the way. So the journey itself is an integral part of our purpose. The process of striving, learning and adapting and cultivating strength, perseverance, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and our divine purpose helps us to understand our purpose of existence. So when I'm telling readers that when you remember, rediscover. To remember, it means you are revisiting. To rediscover, it means you are reviving. You are going to extract something that was underneath. You are going to unveil something that was limiting you. That limitation, and when you have unveiled that limitation, you discover your purpose of existence.
Powerful. It is a Diamond FM always on top of the game. And it is the first segment in For Effect, the news core on the center stage. And in this segment, we bring you trending stories from last week, Wednesday, to this Wednesday, as well as having conversations along those lines. And tonight, we are joined by United Methodist Church pastor, Reverend Preston Majoni, who's recently launched his book, his latest work, Rediscover Your Purpose of Existence, which marks his third book, a continuation of his journey in offering spiritual guidance through literature. So to move on, why do you think so many people struggle to find or live out their purpose? We know that I think I read through some section where you were talking about people, living even without fulfilling their purpose. Why do you think people find it difficult to live out their purpose whilst they are still on earth?
You would find that the richest place in this planet is the graveyard. Mm-hmm. Why is it rich? There are no diamonds there. There's no gold, but it is full of unexploited potential. Mm-hmm. It is full of unused energy and undiscovered purpose. Mm-hmm. So one needs to realize that when you were born, you were not just created to occupy space on this planet. Mm-hmm. There is an inbuilt system that has been inserted on each and every one of us when we were in our mother's womb. Mm-hmm. So you need to understand that sometimes this purpose is not laid bare on the surface, and this purpose can be hidden. Purpose can also hide in several places that we cannot think or imagine. Mm-hmm. So there is need to unveil your inherent purpose by seeking God's guidance in your life. Mm-hmm. Who are you and whose you are? You need to understand that the greatest journey one needs to travel is of self-discovery. You need to travel this journey and understand, who am I? Why am I here on this earth? When I leave this place, would I have exhausted all the ideas? Would I have achieved my purpose of existence? So you'd find that it is a difficult task, but it needs God's grace to unveil and to rediscover your purpose of existence.
Powerful ways to take away from what you've just said. The questions, who am I and whose am I? I think, that's a very powerful, especially when one wants to rediscover their purpose. And how can someone then maybe align their daily life with their God-given purpose?
Yeah, you need to align your daily life with God-given purpose in this way. You need in this book I've written that you rediscover your purpose of existence by aligning your purpose, by remembering that you were created in the image of God. That's what they call in theological terms imago Dei, meaning to say in the image of God. So if you read Genesis chapter 1, there's this Genesis narrative or the creation story. It speaks of a God who creates not out of necessity, but out of deliberate choice and love. God didn't just create for the fun of creating you. He have created you with a purpose. So this act of creation is not a haphazard event, but a carefully orchestrated masterpiece. This intentional act of creation implies a deep-seated purpose, a reason for existence that transcends a mere happenings. This purpose is not confined to the cosmos as a whole, but it extends to every creature, great and small, including humankind. So it suggests that our existence is not accidental. We are not there by default, but by God's design. We are part of a larger and divinely ordinance plan. So you need to align your purpose of existence with God's plan. What is the reason why God created me? If you look at the fact that you were created in the image of God, it tells it all, that God created you for a purpose. And you need to align your purpose by remembering or by moving together with God's creation and God's plan. Yes.
All right. So does purpose change across different stages of life, or it is fixed? I can tell from, or should I say maybe your title is leading for me to say rediscover your purpose. But then the question, I think in many of our audience and your audience as well is does purpose change across different stages of life, and maybe they may want to know the reasons why. If not, is it fixed and why?
Yeah, you'll find that there are times when we think that Ndachibat.
Okay.
Dashika. This is my purpose. This is the reason why I was created by God to be on this planet. But I tell you, the life that we live in, there are so many stages, so many phases that we go through in our lives. Sometimes you would find that this is my purpose, but the Bible says, many are the plans of men, but it is God's purpose that prevails. So if you align yourself with God's plans, that's only when you can say this is the maximum, this is the climax of what it means to be aligning myself with God's purpose. So purpose does not evolve because our God does not change. And
is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
You see now.
Yeah.
So what will be happening now is if you align yourself with God's plans, you would find that it's only us who can change, but God's purpose does not change. It will still remain, but it's us who can divert from God's purpose. Diverting from God's purpose does not mean your purpose have changed.
Okay.
Just look at Jonah.
Yeah.
When he ran to another dimension, to another mission, it didn't change God's purpose. God is unmoved, and his purpose cannot be moved. So in the same way, our purpose does not change, but it's us who can change.
Powerful there. So because of time, allow me to give you just maybe two last questions at one go, and then you respond to those, and then we get to wrap up. So my last focal point was on patience. How patience is often tested in a fast-paced world. How does your book then encourage believers to practice it? And then maybe the second question was, what could be the link between patience and spiritual growth as you present it in your book?
Patience is a virtue that needs to be established in every human being. You'd find that people lose patience in different ways. But in this book, I'm telling the readers that whatever you encounter in your life, be patient. You need to persevere. You need to understand that there's no season that lasts forever. Today you're in winter, tomorrow you'll be in summer. So you would find that people lose patience, but you need to understand that if you go and align your purpose of existence with God's plan, you have patience. And I would link this patience to spiritual growth in this sense that those who grow spiritually, those who are mature Christians, those who are able to, even in psychology, those whom we can say have been self-actualized, they've developed a virtue of patience. Patience is very critical. Whatever the setbacks that we might meet in our lives, we need to be patient. It shall come to pass. Hang on, be patient. God is still in charge. God is not yet done with your story. Yes.
All right. So there you have it. That's Reverend Preston Majoni. So before we get to wrap up this, dialogue, this conversation about his recently launched book, somebody here says, Lawrence, that's my Reverend Preston Majoni. We were there during the launch at St. Mary's UMC last Saturday. Sekuru Marimbende Kunyamauru. Well, thank you so much, Sekuru Marimbende, for coming through. I think I missed this, but I would have loved to be there. And now I'm feeling jealous here. I know.
That's my gossip. Yes, sure.
All right, so now as we get to wrap up, suppose somebody wants to get a copy, where do they find you, or rather, where do they find it?
For the meantime, the copies can be found at our head office of the United Methodist Church in Yebet Street, 122 Yebet Street, or they can get hold of me on my phone number 0773
064
172.
172. I know most of our listeners were not yet prepared to write or jot down this number. So now we give you a second chance. You can call out the number again.
0773
064 172. There you have it. So suppose you want to get a copy from Reverend Preston Majoni, get in touch with him. I think you should leave word of advice, especially for African people. Why I'm saying so, I hate to say that, but I have to. A lot of times I come across people joking around to say, we don't have a reading culture. That's what they were indirectly trying to put across there. So what word of advice would you leave for a listener who is logged on right now?
I tell you, we need to embrace the culture of reading. You'd find that without reading, we cannot go far. Reading helps us. It transforms people from one level to another. The reason why the Bible is written is because you need to read it.
Sure.
So we need to embrace this culture. I know it's difficult, it's hard, but we need to try. Let's try by every means to be reading people. Those who succeed, who have made it in their lives, they are readers. You need to read. If you read, you meet something that will transform and change your life for the good.
Prof on there, and with that note, we get to wrap up at this, conversation, and to wrap up our first segment on the center stage at the News Corps. That was Reverend Preston Majoni, who has recently launched his third book, and the book is titled "Rediscover Your Purpose of Existence," marking his third book. Like I've just put it across, and I'm just hoping that no one a piece. Just like he is encouraging I know some may feel offended, but we have to say it. Thank you so much. Powerful, parting note out there to say let's develop a culture of reading. We appreciate your time here on Diamond FM.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, so to wrap up this discussion, that is Sharon Manyonganise.